doomsday clock has moved closer to midnight than ever before.
The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists says climate change and the nuclear risks stemming from the war in Ukraine are putting humanity at even more risk. The clock is a metaphor for how close we are to destroying our planet. It was set for 100 seconds before midnight in 2020, but now it's set for 90 seconds before midnight. Scientist Steve Fetter explains why.
In announcing the annexation of Ukrainian territories in September, Putin declared that he would defend them with all weapon systems available to us. This is not a bluff. And in case anyone missed the reference to nuclear weapons, he mentioned that Hiroshima and Nagasaki had set a precedent.
Oh, that is frightening. Sivan Kartha is a member of the Science and Security Board for the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Sivan, tell us about what we just heard about Ukraine and President Putin's likelihood of using any kind of nuclear weapons. But can you talk to us about the other major threats that have contributed to setting the time to 90 seconds before midnight?
Absolutely. In addition to the nuclear threat itself, there are some dangerous interactions between the threats. The fact that Putin has invaded Ukraine, it undermines the very basis of global cooperation that we need in order to deal with problems like climate change. There's just this withering of trust and faith in the idea of global cooperation. And climate change, if any problem is a global problem, climate change is it. No individual nation can solve the problem on its own. This has to be done through negotiation and convergence on a common approach that all countries can support and can help each other with.
It's interesting hearing you talk about the unraveling of trust, of global cooperation. And with a little bit of context, the clock was actually launched back in 1947. At that time, students were doing drills underneath their desks, preparing for the possibility of nuclear war. We don't feel that way. Now our students do active shooter drills in school, at least, here in the States. How do all of these world threats today compare to that time? Because it seemed to me that the threat of nuclear war felt much more tangible back then as opposed to now.
It did. It seemed much more in the forefront. But I do think that that the invasion of Ukraine has changed that. People are more conscious of the fact that that a major world leader is making nuclear threats now, and I think young people are also much more aware of the other existential threats that their generation itself is facing. The types of just crazy weather on the West Coast that we're seeing, unprecedented things, the horrendous flooding in Pakistan that happened earlier this year that led to a third of the country being flooded, the droughts and floods that have led to increases in food prices at the same time that the Ukraine war has put pressure on food production because Ukraine itself is such a breadbasket. I think people are actually becoming more aware of all of these problems, and one of the roles of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists and its Doomsday Clock is to bring to the attention of the public the severity of these threats and the extent to which they demand the response of sort of a serious and attentive leadership.